Welcome back to the Great Indian AI Podcast channel. We always try to bring you insightful deep dives. And today, today we're commemorating a pretty somber anniversary.
Yeah.
It's the 20th anniversary of the 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami.
It's hard to believe, really. 2 decades since this tragedy, the scale of the destruction, the loss of life.
It's something we need to understand.
Even now.
Even after all these years, you're right. I think it's something that has really stayed with all of us. This event, it really forced the world to kind of look at the power of nature.
Right.
And it also brought to light this critical need for disaster preparedness.
Absolutely.
Which we'll talk about today.
Yeah, for sure.
So stick with us here on the Great Indian AI Podcast channel. I think there are a lot of valuable insights here that can help us all learn from this tragedy and be better prepared for the future.
I think one of the things that's really important to understand is that the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami was triggered by a massive earthquake. Scientists often call it the Sumatra-Andaman earthquake. It just gives us a little more specific understanding of the geology, the forces at play.
Okay, so December 26, 2004, 07.58.53 local time. It all began off the west coast of northern Sumatra,
Right.
Indonesia,
Indonesia.
near the island of Similu.
No.
But this wasn't just any earthquake.
No, this was what's called a metathrust earthquake, and it's the most powerful type of earthquake there is. You have one tectonic plate diving beneath another,
Right.
creating this immense pressure. And when that pressure releases, it causes a massive rupture along the fault line. And in this case, it was the fault between the Burma plate and the Indian plate.
Oh, wow. I can see why this was so devastating.
Yeah, the magnitude was a staggering 9.2 to 9.3 on the moment magnitude scale. You know, these numbers are hard to really comprehend, but it was the third most powerful earthquake ever recorded. I mean, just to kind of put that into perspective, this earthquake actually shifted the Earth's axis
Wow.
and shortened the length of a day by a fraction of a second.
That's mind-blowing. And the earthquake lasted for an incredibly long time too, right?
At least 10 minutes. The Earth was shifting and shaking that whole time. It was the longest duration of faulting ever observed. And the length of the rupture, 1,200 to 1,300 kilometers. Imagine a rupture longer than the entire length of India.
Yeah. It's just incredible to imagine the forces involved here.
The energy released by this earthquake was so immense that it caused the entire planet to vibrate. Vibrations were detected as far away as Alaska.
Wow. Hard to wrap your head around that.
Chukha.
And of course, this massive earthquake, that's what triggered the devastating tsunami.
The tsunami waves were up to 30 meters high. Think of a 10-story building, that's how tall these waves were. And they were generated by the earthquake's vertical movement of the seabed, which displaced a massive volume of water.
And those waves traveled at an incredible speed, right?
Hundreds of miles per hour, yeah.
Wow.
Radiating outwards across the Indian Ocean, reaching countries thousands of kilometers away. Indonesia obviously was closest, but the tsunami also hit Sri Lanka, India, Thailand, and even countries in Africa.
It really highlights the interconnectedness of our world, how an event in one part of the planet can have such a widespread impact. And that's what we strive to do here at the Great Indian AI Podcast channel, to bring that perspective to our listeners.
Absolutely. And in the case of the tsunami, the impact was particularly devastating in Indonesia, especially in Aceh province, which was closest to the epicenter.
Aceh was essentially ground zero for the tsunami. What happened there?
Well, the city of Banda Aceh was completely overwhelmed by the tsunami waves. I've read accounts from eyewitnesses. They described the tsunami as a black giant, a mountain, a wall of water. I mean, these weren't just waves, they were powerful surges, carrying debris, vehicles, even ships miles inland. There's this one image from Banda Aceh, the Apong 1, a 2,600-ton vessel. It was carried 2 to 3 kilometers inland by the tsunami. It really shows the force of these waves.
Hard to imagine being caught in something like that.
Buildings were swept away, infrastructure was crippled, entire communities vanished. The human cost was immense. Over 130,000 confirmed deaths in Indonesia alone.
And even beyond the immediate impact, I mean, the aftermath, that brought its own set of challenges too, right?
Absolutely. There was widespread damage to ecosystems, shortages of food and water, the constant threat of disease outbreaks. It was a very difficult time.
It's just this poignant reminder of the balance between human life and the natural world. And it's not just a historical event, right? This 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami holds some pretty valuable lessons for all of us, particularly about early warning systems and disaster preparedness.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that.
Okay.
We should also talk about the tsunami's impact on other nations, right? And explore some of the amazing stories of survival that emerged from this tragedy.
Yeah, definitely. let's do it.
Stay tuned for part 2 in our deep dive, right here on the Great Indian AI Podcast channel.
And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more insightful content. We'll be right back with part 2.
So the impact of the 2004 tsunami, it wasn't limited to Indonesia. Thousands of kilometers away, the island nation of Sri Lanka was also struck about 2 hours after the initial earthquake.
Sri Lanka, famous for its beautiful coastline, the vibrant tourist industry, they must have been completely unprepared for a disaster of this scale.
Tragically, yeah. The tsunami waves, after refracting around the southern tip of the island, caused widespread devastation. The eastern and southwestern shores were hit the hardest, and, the southwestern coast was a hub for tourism and fishing, so it was hit later, but with just as much ferocity.
Wow. I can't even begin to imagine the chaos and destruction. As the tsunami swept inland, how many lives were lost in Sri Lanka?
The death toll in Sri Lanka was second only to Indonesia's. An estimated 35,000 lives were lost. And the impact on infrastructure was immense. Countless buildings were destroyed, including homes, businesses, critical infrastructure like bridges, roads, communication networks. Rebuilding after a catastrophe like that was a monumental task.
Yeah. You mentioned fishing. I remember reading about a particularly tragic story from Sri Lanka about a passenger train.
Oh, yes. A regular passenger train packed with over 1,700 passengers. It was traveling between Maradona and Matara when the tsunami hit. The waves derailed and overturned the train. It resulted in the single largest rail disaster death toll in history. At least 1,000 lives were lost.
It's heartbreaking. So the tsunami also impacted India, right?
Yeah, across the Bay of Bengal, Thailand and India also experienced that devastating force of the tsunami. Thailand is a popular tourist destination, especially during the Christmas holiday season. Many visitors were caught completely off guard by the tsunami, unaware of the danger that was approaching.
And where did the tsunami hit in Thailand?
The western coast of Thailand, facing the Andaman Sea, that was hit the hardest. The tsunami wave struck about 2 hours after the earthquake, and it coincided with high tide, which amplified the impact of the waves.
So the timing just made everything so much worse.
Exactly. The popular resort town of Khao Lak in Phang Nga province. It was one of the hardest hit areas in Thailand. Khao Lak, with its beautiful beaches, that laid-back atmosphere, they experienced some of the highest tsunami run-up heights outside of Sumatra, reaching up to 19.6 meters in some areas. An estimated 5,000 lives were lost in Khao Lak alone.
I've seen some video footage captured by tourists in Khao Lak, showing the sea receding dramatically before the tsunami struck. It's eerie to see people venturing out onto the seabed, completely oblivious to the danger. It just shows how a lack of awareness, of the warning signs can be so tragic.
You're absolutely right. And it wasn't just Khao Lak. Other popular tourist destinations like Phuket Island, the Phi Phi Islands, coastal provinces like Krabi and Trang, they were all severely impacted by the tsunami. Here's the suddenness, the ferocity of the tsunami.
Yeah.
It starts with what appears to be a small surge of water, but then it rapidly intensifies, engulfing the beach, the resort. The tsunami's impact on Thailand was a stark reminder of the vulnerability of coastal communities, even those far from the earthquake's epicenter.
Yeah, it must have been terrifying for those who witnessed it. And the tsunami continued on, eventually reaching India, right?
Yes, it traveled across the Indian Ocean, reaching the southeastern coast of India. The states of Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and Kerala, they all experienced significant damage, loss of life. The timing was particularly tragic in India because the tsunami struck in the morning, when many people were on the beaches. Or fishing.
So, completely by surprise.
Yeah. The iconic Marina Beach in Chennai, it was battered by the waves. And the city of Karakal was ravaged by a 10-meter high tsunami. Imagine this wall of muddy water crashing into the coastline. The city of Pondicherry, fortunately, was largely protected by seawalls, so the damage was minimized there.
So, were there any specific areas in India that were particularly hard hit?
The worst affected area in India was Nagapattinam district in Tamil Nadu. A 5-meter high tsunami claimed over 6,000 lives there, and the impact wasn't limited to the eastern coast. Kerala, on the southwestern coast, also experienced significant damage due to the tsunami waves diffracting around Sri Lanka.
And the damage to the fishing industry must have been enormous.
Oh, you're right. The fishing industry in India, particularly in Tamil Nadu and Kerala, was devastated. Thousands of boats were destroyed, crippling livelihoods, impacting communities far beyond the immediate coastline. Just another example of how interconnected things are. How this event rippled outward, impacting people's lives in so many different ways.
The 2004 tsunami really is a tragic reminder of the interconnectedness of our world and the power of these natural forces. But amidst all the tragedy, there are also some remarkable stories of survival, aren't there?
Oh, absolutely.
And I think those stories can offer some hope and inspiration when we're reflecting on an event like this.
I completely agree. On the Indonesian island of Simeulue, located close to the earthquake's epicenter, the local population had this long oral tradition of tsunamis, stories passed down through generations. They recounted a devastating earthquake and tsunami that had struck the island in 1907. And incredibly, this knowledge actually saved lives in 2004.
Wow. So they knew what to look for.
Yeah. When the earthquake hit, the islanders, remembering those old stories, immediately fled to higher ground. They knew that the earthquake was a warning sign of a coming tsunami, and as a result, far fewer lives were lost on Simeulue compared to other nearby islands.
That's an amazing example of how traditional knowledge and understanding of local history can be crucial for disaster preparedness. Are there other stories of survival that stand out?
There's another inspiring story of survival from Thailand. A 10-year-old British tourist named Tilly Smith, who was vacationing with her family in Phuket. She had learned about tsunamis in her geography class, just weeks before the disaster.
I'm reading about her. Her quick thinking saved lives.
It really did. She noticed the sea receding, unusually far, and recognized the warning signs of a tsunami. She had learned that the receding sea was a precursor to the arrival of those large waves. She immediately alerted her family, who then warned others on the beach. And thanks to her quick action, many people were able to evacuate to safety before the tsunami struck.
That's a powerful reminder that education, awareness can empower people to take action in the face of natural disasters. It's like what you were saying earlier about the interconnectedness of things. It's not just about understanding the science, it's about how that knowledge translates into action, preparedness.
You're exactly right. Knowledge is power, but only if we use it. And there were other remarkable stories of survival that highlighted the resilience of the human spirit. In the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, indigenous tribes, with their deep connection to the natural world, they drew upon their traditional knowledge, folklore, to escape the tsunami. They observed animal behavior, heeded the warnings of the elders, and sought refuge in higher ground.
It's incredible how those with a deep understanding of their environment were able to sense the danger, react accordingly. Makes you think about how much we can learn from indigenous communities and their knowledge systems.
You've hit on a really important point there. We often overlook these traditional ways of knowing, but they can hold valuable insights, especially when it comes to understanding and responding to natural phenomena. And speaking of resilience, even amidst the destruction, there were stories of buildings that withstood the force of the tsunami. In Banda Aceh, certain mosques, built with strong foundations, sturdy construction, remained largely intact, offering refuge to survivors in the aftermath, almost like modern-day Noah's Arks.
Oh, I love that analogy. It really speaks to the idea of hope, resilience, even in the face of unimaginable devastation.
These stories of survival, of resilience, of human ingenuity in the face of unimaginable devastation offer a glimmer of hope amidst the tragedy. They remind us of the importance of traditional knowledge, education, awareness, and community. In facing natural disasters, they underscore the strength of the human spirit and the capacity for hope, even in the darkest of times. And I think it's important to hold on to that hope, especially as we delve into the lessons learned from the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami.
Absolutely. We'll continue our exploration of the 2004 tsunami in part 3 of our deep dive, where we'll discuss the aftermath and the global response to this tragedy. Stay tuned to the Great Indian AI podcast channel for more. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back to the Great Indian AI podcast channel. We've been talking about the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, looking at the devastation, the survival stories, and now I think it's time to shift our focus to the aftermath, the global response to this tragedy.
Yeah, in the face of such immense loss, destruction, the world really came together. To offer support and aid to those countries, it was truly a global effort, with nations from every corner of the world pledging billions of dollars in aid.
So what did that look like, practically speaking? What did this global response actually look like?
Countries sent emergency supplies, medical teams, disaster relief experts to the affected regions. Organizations like the United Nations, the Red Cross, countless NGOs, they mobilized their resources to provide food, water, shelter, and medical care to those who needed it. It was a massive undertaking, and it really showed the power of, human compassion, cooperation in times of crisis.
It's inspiring to see how people can unite, in the face of such adversity, transcending borders and differences. to offer support, but the need must have been so overwhelming.
Oh, it was. And it wasn't just about immediate relief. This collective effort, it extended to long-term recovery, helping communities rebuild their homes, infrastructure, their livelihoods. The process of rebuilding was long and arduous, but the outpouring of support from around the world made a difference.
This tragedy also brought to light some critical lessons. I'm thinking specifically about early warning systems for tsunamis.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The lack of such a system in the Indian Ocean at the time contributed to that high death toll. The 2004 tsunami exposed the vulnerability of coastal communities around the world. It was a wake-up call, and the world responded.
So what changed as a result?
Well, in 2005, the Indian Ocean Tsunami Warning System was established. This network of sensors, communication systems, emergency procedures, all designed to detect tsunamis, alert coastal populations, to give people time to evacuate to safety.
That's reassuring, but it's not just about technology, is it? Education and community preparedness also play a vital role.
You're exactly right. Knowing the warning signs, having evacuation plans in place, fostering that community resilience, these are all essential for saving lives. Remember Tilly Smith, the Islanders of Samilu. Those are powerful examples of how knowledge and awareness can empower individuals to take life-saving action.
Yeah, those stories really stayed with me. It shows that, everyone has a role to play in disaster preparedness.
Exactly. Governments, disaster management agencies, communities all need to work together to ensure that we're better prepared for future tsunamis and other natural disasters. The 2004 tsunami, it taught us a valuable lesson about respecting nature's power, understanding the risks, especially for those living in coastal areas. It's a reminder to be proactive, not reactive.
We've come a long way since 2004, but I think there's always more we can do to improve our preparedness, our resilience. As we reflect on this 20th anniversary, this devastating event, what key takeaways should our listeners on the Great Indian AI podcast channel keep in mind?
Let's remember the lives lost, the communities forever changed by the 2004 tsunami. It's a reminder of our shared humanity, the importance of compassion, support in times of need, and, let's use this knowledge to be more aware, more prepared, more resilient. In the face of natural disasters, we've learned about the science behind tsunamis, the warning signs, the importance of those early warning systems. Let's share this knowledge with our families, our friends, our communities.
It's about turning knowledge into action.
Exactly. Let's support organizations that are working on disaster preparedness, relief efforts. Let's advocate for policies that prioritize disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation, and most importantly, let's never forget the lessons of the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. Let's make sure we are better prepared to face the challenges of the future.
This has been a truly insightful deep dive into a tragic but very important event. It's a testament to the power of knowledge, the resilience of the human spirit, and the importance of coming together in times of crisis. Thank you for joining us on this journey.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Great Indian AI podcast channel. We encourage you to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more insightful content. Remember, knowledge is power, and together we can make a difference.